Alfonso Cahero, A Journey into Finance History, Chapter 32, Formation of Standard Oil and the Rise of Monopolies, 1870. In the bustling streets of Cleveland, Ohio, in the year 1870, a young man named John D. Rockefeller had a vision. It was a time of great change, with the Industrial Revolution sweeping across America like a storm, transforming cities and landscapes alike. Rockefeller saw opportunity in this chaos, and he was determined to seize it. Born into a modest family, Rockefeller possessed an entrepreneurial spirit from a young age. He saw potential in the burgeoning oil industry, which was experiencing rapid growth thanks to the discovery of vast oil reserves in Pennsylvania. At just 31 years old, Rockefeller founded Standard Oil Company, laying the groundwork for what would become one of the most powerful corporations in history. Rockefeller's journey began in the early 1860s when he entered the oil business. At that time, oil was primarily used for lighting, and Rockefeller recognized its potential for growth. He started by investing in oil refineries and transportation infrastructure, positioning himself to take advantage of the industry's expansion. By 1870, Rockefeller had already established himself as a shrewd businessman, but the creation of Standard Oil marked a turning point in his career. He saw an opportunity to consolidate the chaotic and fragmented oil industry under a single entity, one that could dominate production, distribution, and pricing. As Rockefeller's Standard Oil Company began to expand, so too did the oil industry itself. The demand for petroleum products skyrocketed as new technologies emerged, from kerosene for lighting to gasoline for automobiles. With each passing year, Rockefeller's empire grew, acquiring rival companies and consolidating its control over the market. The 1870s and 1880s witnessed an unprecedented boom in the oil industry. Spurred by the discovery of vast oil reserves in Pennsylvania and Texas, production soared, fueling economic growth and industrialization across the United States. Standard Oil led the charge, pioneering new drilling techniques, building pipelines and refineries, and establishing a vast network of distribution channels. By the end of the 19th century, Standard Oil had become the largest oil company in the world, controlling over 90% of America's oil refining capacity. Its dominance was such that it effectively dictated prices and production levels, squeezing out smaller competitors and exerting influence over the entire industry. Rockefeller was not content to simply dominate the oil industry. He wanted to revolutionize it. He implemented innovative business practices, such as vertical integration and horizontal consolidation, to streamline production and maximize profits. By controlling every aspect of the supply chain, from drilling to refining to distribution, Standard Oil was able to undercut its competitors and drive them out of business. Vertical integration allowed Standard Oil to control every stage of the oil production process, from extracting crude oil to selling refined products. This meant that the company could minimize costs, increase efficiency, and maintain a tight grip on the market. Horizontal consolidation, on the other hand, involved acquiring competing firms to eliminate competition and expand market share. Standard Oil used its immense financial resources to buy out smaller refineries, pipelines, and transportation companies, integrating them into its vast network. In 1882, Rockefeller took his quest for dominance to the next level by forming the Standard Oil Trust. This unprecedented move allowed him to combine the resources of multiple companies under a single umbrella, effectively creating a monopoly on the oil industry. By controlling nearly 90% of America's oil refining capacity, Standard Oil wielded immense power over both the market and the government. The trust was a legal entity that allowed Standard Oil to consolidate its assets and streamline its operations. It gave Rockefeller unprecedented control over the oil industry, allowing him to set prices, control production, and eliminate competition at will. The formation of the Standard Oil Trust sparked controversy and outrage among competitors and the public alike. Critics accused Rockefeller of using unfair business tactics to stifle competition and manipulate markets, while politicians called for antitrust legislation to rein in the trust's power. With its vast resources and strategic advantages, Standard Oil tightened its grip on the oil industry with each passing year. Competitors found themselves at a disadvantage, unable to compete with the trust's sheer scale and efficiency. Even those who attempted to challenge Standard Oil soon found themselves either bought out or driven to the brink of bankruptcy. Standard Oil's dominance extended beyond the United States, as the company expanded its operations overseas. It established a global network of refineries, distribution centers, and marketing channels, solidifying its position as the world's leading oil producer and exporter. Despite growing public outcry and legal challenges, Standard Oil continued to operate with impunity, its monopoly seemingly unassailable. Rockefeller's iron grip on the oil industry seemed unbreakable, but cracks were beginning to appear in the facade. As Standard Oil's power grew, so too did the public outcry against it. Critics accused Rockefeller of monopolistic practices and unfair business tactics, while politicians called for antitrust legislation to rein in the trust's power. Rockefeller, however, remained undeterred, using his influence to sway public opinion and maintain his stranglehold on the industry. The 1890s saw the emergence of the populist movement, a grassroots political uprising against the power of big business and wealthy elites. Populist leaders like William Jennings Bryan railed against the robber barons of industry, calling for government intervention to protect the interests of ordinary citizens. In response, Rockefeller and other industrialists launched a campaign to discredit the populists and maintain their grip on power. They used their vast wealth to fund political candidates who supported their interests and lobbied against antitrust legislation. In 1911, the U.S. Supreme Court finally took action against Standard Oil, ruling that the trust was in violation of the Sherman Antitrust Act. The decision marked the end of an era for Rockefeller, as Standard Oil was ordered to dissolve into several smaller companies. Despite the setback, Rockefeller remained one of the wealthiest men in America, and his legacy lived on in the oil industry he had helped to shape. The breakup of Standard Oil was a watershed moment in American history, signaling the end of the trust era and the beginning of a new era of antitrust enforcement. It set a precedent for future cases involving monopolies and paved the way for the regulation of other industries, including railroads, telecommunications, and finance. The Supreme Court's decision was met with mixed reactions. Supporters hailed it as a victory for competition and consumer rights, while critics warned of the potential consequences for the economy and American competitiveness. With the breakup of Standard Oil, the oil industry entered a new era of competition and innovation. While Rockefeller's empire had been dismantled, the companies that emerged from its ashes continued to dominate the market, albeit in a more fragmented fashion. The lessons of the trust era would shape the future of American business for generations to come. The breakup of Standard Oil led to the creation of several new companies, including Exxon, Mobil, Chevron, and Texaco. These companies competed fiercely for market share, driving innovation and technological advancements in the oil industry. Despite the breakup, Rockefeller remained one of the wealthiest individuals in America, thanks in part to his investments in other industries such as banking, railroads, and real estate. He continued to exert influence over American business and politics until his death in 1937. Despite the controversy surrounding his business practices, John D. Rockefeller left behind a lasting legacy as one of America's most influential entrepreneurs. Through his vision, determination, and ruthless ambition, he transformed the oil industry and paved the way for modern capitalism. His philanthropic efforts, including the creation of the Rockefeller Foundation, further solidified his place in history as a titan of industry and a benefactor of humanity. Rockefeller's philanthropy was as legendary as his business acumen. He donated millions of dollars to various causes, including education, public health, and scientific research. The Rockefeller Foundation, established in 1913, became one of the largest and most influential charitable organizations in the world, funding projects ranging from medical research to environmental conservation. Despite his immense wealth, Rockefeller lived a relatively modest lifestyle, eschewing extravagance and ostentation in favor of frugality and discipline. He believed in the importance of hard work, thrift, and perseverance, values that he instilled in his children and grandchildren. The rise and fall of Standard Oil serve as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked corporate power. While Rockefeller's success was undeniably impressive, it came at a cost to both his competitors and the American people. The trust era highlighted the need for robust antitrust laws to prevent monopolies from stifling competition and harming consumers.